The price of Bitcoin has finally started to fall, and the question at the front of everyone's mind here is why? And this is actually a trick question because there's more than one reason as to why the price of Bitcoin is finally pulling back. And what I want to do in today's video is go over all these different reasons, as well as kind of locate and bring awareness to some of the FUD that is floating around out there. So if this does sound interesting and you're curious why Bitcoin is finally starting to see this pullback, I want to kind of break down everything that's happening on not only Bitcoin, but the general crypto market as a whole as well. So what we have in front of us here is the Bitcoin chart. And what we've seen is that Bitcoin has been kind of on a roller coaster of emotions here lately. I mean, after all, it bounced from support at around $34,700, went all the way up to this new yearly high of 38.1, then back down to 34, then back up to 38, then back down to 35. And we've been doing this up and down for a couple of weeks now. And so what we've seen actually in recent weeks on Bitcoin is that it has used this really nice support line. Essentially, this is just an area where Bitcoin has been consistently bouncing, and it's an area where buyers are actually really comfortable accumulating and purchasing more Bitcoin. And so with this, we can see that prices bounced off of here not once, not twice, 3, 4, 5 times now. And you can see that the buyers are really comfortable here, especially in recent days around this blue line, which just so happens to be the 20-day moving average. So from a technical standpoint, Bitcoin has just been pulling back to support after a pretty consistent move to the upside. I mean, after all, it doesn't take like anyone who's an expert at technical analysis to look at this and see that it has been a general upside consolidation. Now, again, this comes after a really big move. So when Bitcoin consolidates and even pulls back a little bit here, it is a pretty normal and even healthy thing for it to do, especially when it is setting higher swing lows like it's currently doing. Now, if this starts to crack, then yeah, that could probably print a little bit of a different story on Bitcoin. Maybe it goes back down to the lower 30,000s. And there's a couple of scenarios that we can look at from there. But before we do this, I want to go back and kind of look at some of the more fundamental side of things like the news, because I've seen a lot of stuff circulating around out there, mainly around the idea of like the SEC and the ETF approvals for Bitcoin and all that stuff. So articles like this one say SEC delays decision on Hashtag's Bitcoin spot ETFs application. And then we also see ones like this that's just saying, hey, Bitcoin's price is slipping as traders are awaiting these Bitcoin ETF approvals, but crypto bulls are still eyeing 50K. And I think that this one actually really stuck out to me because I was asked about this 2 days ago. Someone came up to me, they said, hey, Brendan, do you think that the price of Bitcoin can still reach $50,000 before the end of this year? And I think that was like, a semi-complex question. Like it's a simple question that has a complex answer, and I would not count it out. Now, if a Bitcoin ETF approval happens or if multiple happens, I think it is absolutely possible for Bitcoin to hit $50,000 before the end of this year. Now, to answer this question a little bit more deeper, what we have to look is kind of how far away the end of the year is, and then how far Bitcoin has moved in that same time interval. So we're about halfway through November, so we have about a month and a half before the end of this year. So what I want to do is just kind of take the price of Bitcoin and say, hey, how far have we moved in the last month and a half here, the last, let's just say 45 days. Well, the price of Bitcoin has roughly moved about $10,000, we'll just say $9,000 to $10,000. So if we're using our past information, our past data to indicate a previous move or a continued move to the upside, and we take that $9,000 to $10,000 from where we are currently priced at, well, $9,000 to $10,000 from 35K would bring us to maybe closer to 45,000. But I wanted to make sure that I touched on this question because I've seen a lot of speculation around the idea of this $50,000 Bitcoin price prediction by the end of this year in 2023. So to answer this question in really simple terms, yes, I think it's likely. I actually think that it is extremely likely to happen if one or more Bitcoin ETFs get approved. And even without a Bitcoin ETF getting approved, it's still something that is completely reasonable. I mean, after all, we're not going for like $100,000 or $1 million Bitcoin prediction by the end of this year. We're talking about $50,000. And all Bitcoin would have to do, even without an ETF approval, is just pick up the pace and pick up the volatility towards the upside just a little bit. If it was able to do $10,000 in the last month and a half, all we'd have to do is pick up a little bit of pace and do $15,000 in the coming month and a half. And for anyone who's been around in the crypto markets for an extended period of time, you would know that November and December are typically very strong and bullish months for the crypto market. So if there's any time for this to be possible, I would say that it's completely not out of the picture as we are pushing into a really bullish end to this year so far. Now, the final thing that I want to talk about here is just this last article, a little bit more FUD, that is coming out from the CEO of BitGo. And basically what he said here is that more Bitcoin ETF rejections could be quote unquote quite likely. And people read something like this, and then they read these other articles about delays and Bitcoin's price slipping and people being impatient. And I think it kind of feeds into this narrative of like a more bearish FUD-based Bitcoin at the moment. And I think that a lot of this is contributing to the sell-off of Bitcoin when you really also pair this with Bitcoin just had a really big move to the upside, and it's finally starting to pull back a little bit. So I want to go ahead and round off this video by saying there's a lot of this FUD circulating around out here. And whether BitGo's CEO believes this or not, we have seen people in positions of power in cryptocurrency that want attention say something really controversial so that they can get to the front of crypto's largest news sites, because they're going to eat it up. They're going to put it as a headline. It's a controversial opinion. And whether it is positive or negative, they know it's going to make a headline. So, again, maybe he does actually believe that there's quite likely going to be Bitcoin ETF rejections. Maybe he doesn't. But at the end of the day, he's now at the front of the news for saying something like this because it is, controversial nonetheless. And I also think something important to kind of note here is that, from my understanding, the large amount of data that we've seen out there around these Bitcoin ETF approvals is actually like completely contradictory to everything that he was talking about. And so when you look at something like the BlackRock ETF approval, and I want all of you to fact check me on this, but from my understanding, we were looking at like a 90% ETF approval rate before the end of January. So I don't know how we can have quite likely ETF rejections, but also have a 90% likely approval rating from a company that has a 99.9% chance of passing ETFs in the past. I don't know. I see it as a little bit contradictory. And again, in my personal opinion, again, he could truly believe this, but it almost seems a little bit like a PR stunt for someone who's a leader in crypto to say something so negative about these ETF rejections. But that's just my 2 cents on the matter, and simply my opinion, and only that. But that's going to wrap us up for today's video, everyone. And I guess the last note that I want to leave everyone is that the markets move up and they move down, and it's perfectly normal for any kind of market, especially after the recent months that we have had in the recent weeks. It's perfectly normal for them to pull back. I mean, most cryptos are up double, if not triple, and some are even up quadruple digits. And guess what? The ones that just moved up triple digits, maybe they fall double digits, but they're still up triple digits at the end of the day. So, they make a 200% move to the upside. They pull back 20%, and people are like, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. But in reality, they're still up like 100%, 200, 300%, a lot of these cryptos. So overall, Bitcoin's still at support. I don't see anything too crazy here. Obviously, Ethereum is at a really big resistance line. So is the Total 2. I think both of these are really important things to kind of keep an eye out on as we move forward here. But these are all contributing factors as to why the crypto market is pulling back. And I don't see it as anything that is like market reversing. Like we haven't gotten like a BlackRock ETF rejection or anything like that. So overall, I'm still very optimistic about the crypto markets long term. I don't see anything that is too much to worry about. And if you guys want to get more involved and you like the content that we make, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. You can also check out some of the links in the description down below if you want to get more plugged in. And then with that being said, everyone, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in next week's video.